Welcome to Wallace on Wire. Today we're talking about Ismail Sabri's massive asset forfeiture case. I mean, if you've seen the headline, it's just shocking, right? A court order for forfeiting this huge amount of cash. We're talking about 169 million ringgit, and it's linked to the former Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, and his former political secretary. It's not just the money, it's how the government managed to seize it. That's what we want to get into.
Exactly. That's really the core here. This decision came out of Kuala Lumpur, you see. The Sessions Court there, they basically approved an application from the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, the MACC. But here's the thing you need to grasp right away. This isn't a criminal conviction. It's what's called a civil forfeiture. It's different.
Okay, civil forfeiture. So the state takes the property, but it's not like finding someone guilty in a criminal court.
Precisely. The idea is the property itself is linked to some kind of unlawful act, or in this case, maybe non-compliance. They don't necessarily need that finding of guilt against the person for this specific action.
All right, that distinction is key. So our mission here for you listening is figuring out the mechanics. How did the MACC actually claim this mountain of cash? What laws allowed this? It seemed quite, well, fast.
Well, it really boils down to how the individuals involved responded, or rather, how they didn't respond.
Okay, so the two main people, former PM Ismail Sabri and his former political secretary, the court said, okay, this money is now officially confiscated. It goes back to the government.
Yes. And the crucial point, the reason the court granted the MACC's application was because neither Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri nor Datuk Mohd Anwar raised any objection.
No objection.
Zero objection to the prosecution wanting to forfeit RM169 million seized by the MACC. Now, you have to stop and think about that, seriously. If you felt that money was yours, legitimately earned, why would you just let the government take nearly 170 million ringgit without putting up a fight?
Yeah, that silence, it speaks volumes. What's the thinking there? It feels counterintuitive. So unless fighting it was somehow riskier.
That's likely the calculation. It's risk management, really, legally speaking. By not objecting, they essentially agree the state has a right to it under the MACC Act in this context. They forfeit it. It probably limits the damage, you see. If they fought it, the MACC would have had to lay out evidence. Not just about failing to declare assets, maybe, but potentially about where the money came from. That could open up a whole other can of worms, you know? Serious criminal charges, maybe money laundering.
Okay.
So conceding the cash potentially avoids a much bigger legal battle.
So lose the money to avoid something worse, like potential criminal prosecution. That kind of fits with what the court mentioned about third parties too, right? The judge said they put out an announcement last month asking if anyone else wanted to claim the money. Nobody did.
Crickets. Exactly. That's a standard part of the process. You have to give anyone with a potential legitimate claim a chance. The fact that nobody stepped forward, it just strengthens the MACC's case. It suggests either the money really belonged to the parties involved, or it was just too problematic for anyone else to touch. Imagine trying to prove legitimate ownership under that kind of scrutiny.
Right. Okay, let's get into the legal nuts and bolts. What specific law gave the MACC this power? You mentioned the MACC Act.
Yeah, the specific tool they used here is Section 41(b) of the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission Act 2009. That's the mechanism for seizing and forfeiting assets linked to an offense under the Act.
Okay, Section 41(1), that's the hammer, basically.
Right, but you need a reason to swing the hammer. What was the underlying offense? That's key, too. The MACC stated the funds were connected to an offense under Section 36(2) of the same Act.
Section 36(2). What does that cover?
That section deals with failing to comply with an asset declaration notice.
Ah, asset declaration. So if MACC asks you to declare your assets, you have to do it fully and accurately.
That's it. Section 36(2) makes it an offense if you don't comply when they issue that notice.
So help me connect the dots for the listener. How does failing to declare assets under 36(2) lead to seizing millions under 41(1)?
Okay, think of it like this. Section 36(2) is about the failure to act the omission. You failed to declare. That's the offense. Once the MACC establishes that you violated 36(2), any assets you failed to declare, like this RM169 million, are considered connected to that offense.
Okay.
And that connection is the legal justification, the hook, for MACC to then use the forfeiture power under Section 41(1). Crucially, they don't necessarily have to prove the cash came from corruption itself for this specific action. They just need to show it should have been declared and it wasn't. That's a much lower bar to clear legally than proving bribery or something similar.
Wow. Okay, that makes the MACC strategy very clear. It turns a paperwork violation, essentially,
Right.
into a way to recover potentially hundreds of millions. And this wasn't out of the blue, was it? MACC had been looking into this for a while.
Oh, absolutely. This wasn't sudden. The Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission confirmed they'd called Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri in multiple times before, specifically for questioning about asset declarations. So there was a pattern here, an ongoing investigation, maybe non-compliance built up to this forfeiture application.
Let's talk about the money itself now, because saying 169 million ringgit doesn't quite capture the complexity. The mix of currencies suggests something pretty international was going on.
It really does. The sheer volume is one thing, but the diversification that points to how these assets might have been managed, moved around. This isn't just local dealings, It looks more like a global inventory.
Yeah, look at the breakdown. Okay, Malaysian ringgit, almost 15 million. RM, 14,772,150. But U.S. dollars, nearly 1.5 million. USD, 1,461,400. And euros, over 12 million euros. EUR, 12,164,150. That's huge.
The euros are significant, yeah. Suggests strong links or dealings in Europe. But look at the others. Singapore dollars, over 6 million. SGD, 6,132,350. Japanese yen, 363 million. JPY, 363 million.
Yeah.
Points to major Asian financial centers. And a massive amount of UAE dirhams. AED, 34,750,000.
34, nearly 35 million dirhams. Wow. That points strongly towards the Middle East, doesn't it? Maybe investments, business routed through the Gulf. This wasn't just pocket change. This looks like a managed portfolio.
Managed, liquid, and needing security. Across borders.
Which brings us to where they found it.
Yes, the MACC confiscated it from 2 places. They were described as a safe house and offices. And this happened during an investigation that was actually looking into 4 of Ismail Sabri's former senior officials initially.
A safe house.
Yeah.
That term itself, it suggests keeping things deliberately off the grid, doesn't it? Away from banks. What does it actually take to physically secure that much cash? In all those different currencies. We're not talking about a shoebox here.
No, definitely not. That's a really practical point people often miss. Storing almost 170 million ringgit equivalent in physical cash, diversified like that, it requires serious physical security. Think vaults, maybe constant monitoring, very limited access. It implies a deep distrust of banks or maybe a need for assets to be liquid. And the fact the investigation started with 4 senior officials and suggests this probably wasn't just one person acting alone. It could imply a whole network involved in just managing the logistics of handling and storing that physical cash.
It really paints a picture of the challenges MACC faces with undeclared wealth. So let's pull it all together. For you listening, what's the main takeaway from how the MACC handled this?
I think the key takeaway is just how powerful Section 41 can be, especially when it's combined with a Section 36(2 violation, the failure to declare. It's often easier to prove than outright corruption, like we said. And by using civil forfeiture, they got a result reclaiming a huge sum of money relatively quickly. They bypassed what could have been years of complex criminal trials.
Right.
It sets a really strong precedent for how the government can tackle suspicious, undeclared wealth held by high-level figures.
So it streamlines the process, financially at least.
Yeah.
And it kind of flips the burden, doesn't it? It's like, you didn't declare this, now you have to prove it's legitimate or you lose it.
Exactly. That's the power of civil forfeiture in this context. So if you think bigger picture, all those currencies, we counted at least 10, right? And the fact it was physical cash, stored in specific locations. What does this case really tell us about asset declaration for politicians in Malaysia? How vigilant does the system need to be? Because the message now seems pretty clear. If you hold assets and don't declare them when asked, they are seriously vulnerable. It makes you wonder why someone would hold such vast sums in physical cash in the first place outside the banking system.
That is definitely something to think about moving forward. A really provocative point.
Indeed.
Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.